Can Eric Zabel take back the green jersey for a 6th time this year? You want to get on the net and send the yes or no to that one, and we will analyse all those replies, and then we'll put it out on the screen later on today after this programme. As you now look then at the situation with Pinotti in the lead, the chasers at 22 seconds, and getting in towards the final 20 kilometres of the stage. Well, they're split all over the place. Just seeing down the road where we've got a long gap now. Last time check I had, it was some 40 seconds for Pinotti. How do you read it, Sean?
Yes, well, Pinotti on his own, the two chasers, Verbruggen we see here and Renier were at 22 seconds, and we've also have two others who were chasing, Nardello and Bouvard, and they were around 40 seconds when they left the rest of the 25-man group. So I reckon they're about 30 seconds down on the leader of Pinotti.
So Renier looks like he's shot his bolt and gone out the back now, because on his own here is Vic Verbruggen, who took the prologue time trial in the Tour of Italy a few weeks ago with a record-breaking turn of speed. So he's obviously fairly quick off the mark here, and there he is then trying to get up to Pinotti, the survivors of this 25-man group. They're so far ahead really they can have their own little battle, because the peloton is 14 minutes 15 seconds down the last thing we had. Verbruggen split from Regnault, Nardello and Bouvard are wedged in no man's land, and Pinotti's still going. Here he is. Well, he's still looking for hope for somebody to come up to him, but he's looking very comfortable indeed at the moment. I'm just hearing overhead phones. 40 seconds back then to the riders who are chasing after this lone man here, as Mike Smith, believe it or not, has some more statistics for us.
Yeah, they're never ending, David, aren't they? They keep coming at you, they keep coming at you. We've mentioned once or twice in our commentary that today is the longest stage of this year's tour, 232.5 kilometres. But in actual fact, it compares interestingly with the longest stages we've had in recent years. If you look down there, you'll see 250s, 260s. The UCI, the world's governing body, has started being a little bit more strict about the length of tours, and in fact all major races, trying to cut them down, trying to make them a little bit shorter, in the hope that that will discourage people from being tempted to take things that they shouldn't take. And that's one of the reasons why the longest stage this year is only, I say only very carefully and advisedly, David, it's only 232.5 kilometres. The total length of the Tour de France this year, one of the shortest in many, many years, and I think that trend is probably going to continue.
Yeah, I think I would like Sean to comment on this, but I feel the shorter stages are, to an extent, leading to, I won't say faster racing, but interesting racing, and it was the Tour of Italy, Tour of Spain that went after that one. The UCI have not been sort of coming down with a heavy hand. They've been indicating what they want, and the same thing with the 3 Grand Tours. They've been careful not to destroy the soul of the tours. It's the smaller tours where they've come down with a thick, clammy hand to make certain things happen. So it's not something they're going to be doing automatically, in the same way in which the classics are still being left at the old distance, where things like Gent-Wevelgem have really been cut down. Now, Sean, do you like the shorter tours or the longer ones? I mean, as a rider, perhaps it's nice today. What do you think about from the point of view of spectators and the way in which the races can unfold?
Well, I think the longer tours, the big national tours like France, Italy and Spain, they have always been around the 3 weeks. So, I think they have to stay within that a day or two within that at least, because if you take too much away from it, then I think you're going to destroy the tradition of the tours. But I think what's being done is the stages are being taken down a bit, and shorter stages, not as many kilometres in the total of a tour, and that I think it helps, because there's a lot of problems first of all for the riders. If it's every day long stages over 200 kilometres, it makes it very, very tiring, and also for the organisation, road closures getting more and more difficult. So there's a variety of things for the shorter stages. It doesn't take it doesn't upset the towns and the villages as long. The road closures not as long, and for the riders also, which is the most important thing, is not as demanding. So I think we will see shorter stages coming in, but I don't think we will ever see a Tour of France being cut any less than very close to 3 weeks.
Yeah, and the other thing too with shortening the stages, which we have to take in mind too, is that you have to lay the Tour de France out where the towns that you can start and finish the stages, because the entourage with the Tour de France is enormous. The number of vehicles, not only how to park them at the start of the tour, particularly with the publicity cavalcades, but also at the finish where you have to put all the vehicles for television, and it's getting bigger and bigger television coverage. And the trucks that come along here, because they are sort of wheeled studios inside there. They've got all these trucks, and they have to have their own generators too, and supplies of electricity has to be boosted up, and not all these towns can cope with that. And then if you do finish in a minor town, a small one, the riders then have to go a long way, and the officials, to find places to stay. So France is such a big place that it's not easy to run a race with shorter stages. Often longer ones would go from big town to big town. You can imagine on the first Tour de France in 1903, the first stage was from Paris to Lyon, 467 kilometres. That's over 300 miles. In fact, the whole race was on 6 stages, and it was averaging over 400 k's a day. Well, the breakaway group of 25 men really knows they've got a race on their hands now. There's Pinotti here and Verbruggen. Verbruggen set a very quick pace at the front, and the gap has been opening up all the time. Inside 20 kilometres to go. Verbruggen about 11 seconds back on Verbruggen, closing the gap quickly. And Renier, Nardello and Bouvard have now come together, leaving the main pack something in a region of about another 30 seconds back from them. So he might just about make it here. It's a very gutsy piece of action by the Lampre-Duycken rider, and we're going back here to pick up the group here. They seem to be working very hard indeed. The bunch has been going well, the peloton's been going well, the bunch particularly wanting on the impetus of Kelme to close the gap down. They're not going to do that, but this is a wonderful piece of performance here. Lampre-Duycken. They are an air conditioning company, by the way, the Duycken people. That's actually from Japan originally. And we went very fast to their factory, very close to their factory on the road stage up into Antwerp. That's the Duycken bit. The Lampre people, I think they're into specialised steels, and not the sort you make railway tracks of, but the sort of flat metal sort of stuff you use, not exactly in cars, but I think it's more for specialised steel strip than anything else, and they joined up with Duycken. So it's odd people who get into sponsoring cycle racing. Lotto is the national lottery of Belgium. Adeco is one of these placement agencies. If you want to go and get some part-time secretarial help, then Adeco will do that. They're also into manpower in other forms too, and I think they might be a place you can go and see if there are any jobs available too, a sort of job agency too. But certainly it's one of those manpower type operations who have spread all over. They're not only in Belgium, by the way. I've seen them in various parts of France, and also I've seen them in Britain popping up now too as well. So to give you some idea of this sort of sponsorship that we're getting in this cycle sport at the moment. Sean, is he going to make it?
Well, it's difficult to say, David. He's got 11 seconds on Verbruggen, but then there's Renier, Nardello and Bouvard at 25 seconds, so there's nothing in it really for the moment. And the rest of the breakaway is very, very active. There's a lot of attacks coming, and I think we could see a lot of these riders coming back on him yet, but he's still riding. He's riding very, very strong. I think if Nardello, Bouvard, and Renier gets caught by the rest of the breakaway group, then I think there will be a very good opportunity, because there will be a lot of attacking again. It will get disorganised. But I think Verbruggen, we could see he joining Pinotti very, very shortly.
Well, Verbruggen is the better known of those two riders out there, because young Pinotti has been volunteered for the Tour de France. He didn't ride the Tour of Italy, so they have the Italian teams often put the A team into the Tour of Italy and the B team into the Tour de France, because the Tour of Italy to them is, in terms of publicity, is what they want most of all on home ground. And also the riders who are here who may have had some problems in the Tour de France will then come in, in the Tour of Italy, will then come in to ride the Tour de France. They get a real mixed bag as far as the Italians are concerned. concerned with often young riders or older experienced riders, and they come here hoping to get something out of it. They don't come just for the benefit of their health, they come to win something and get their brand exposed, but it's not their number one. The Italian Giro d'Italia is the one they go for. So this lad here is only 25 years of age actually. He didn't come into the pro rank until 1999. Not this one here, Verbrugge, but the chap in the pink and the blue just gone down the road. Verbrugge, well, one of the very hard riding Belgians who's prepared to have a go, and certainly has got enormous talent, but hasn't had the best of races so far. And I think, is he coming back, or is that the other pinky jersey go off the front? Go back to the radio tour, who's trying to keep abreast of it as well. So we're still getting over the headphones that Verbrugge's about to catch Pinotti. He hasn't quite made it yet. Sitting very low in the saddle. But they've told the motorcycles to keep a little bit back from the chase going on. Here he is. Comes from a place called Osio Sotto in Bergamo. O-S-I-O-S-O-T-T-O. You can just see him down there in the distance. Well, it really is man-to-man on this particular occasion, and the field behind wedged there, Nardello, Bouvard and Renier. And Verbrugge's come at him. 8 seconds the gap now. 40 seconds to the three riders behind it.
Well, David, this is proving quite a big battle, and we've got armchair seats, haven't we, watching this battle now between Pinotti and Verbrugge. These two guys, along with the rest of that breakaway group, have now been away for 145 kilometres. They went away at 63. We've now just gone through 208, and remember that the stage distance today is 232 kilometres. This is heading for one of the biggest breakaways of this tour. We have had one slightly longer a little while back. Jalabert, in fact, was out his own for what I think was something like 197 kilometres, wasn't it, on that one stage when he picked up all those King of the Mountains jerseys. But these guys have had a long, hard day in the sun.
Well, so the piece of cheese is getting as long as we ever had. But we just come to a nice cheese dish. I know I told you, Mike, day before yesterday, we had not such a big piece of cheese. It was Pyrenean cheese, by the way, and I actually had some night before last. It's made with ewe's milk and brownish rind around the outside of it. It's like yellow curd. It's a very nice cheese, but it's cut very thin, and I suppose it's about 10 inches in diameter and about 3 inches in depth, and it's nice rounded shape to the outside, like a big wheel it is, and very pleasant too as well. So thanks to your piece of cheese up there, Mike. I suppose that we ain't going to see much of it until we finish now. But once again, a statistic showing how long these riders have been away. Pretty well par for the course for the race to be like that today, with the lesser-known riders. I shouldn't use the word lesser-known in terms of their successes, because Nardo is the Italian champion, for instance. We've got Brochard there, who's been past world champion as well in this breakaway group too. Some pretty good riders in there, but they're not really any great threat overall on the general classification. Now trying to go across. We've still got those leaders. One man, Serpellini, has now been caught by Nardello, Bouvard and Renier, so they've gone back together, and the four riders now on this little climb here look like they're also trying to go away off the front, but still in the lead. Then we have our lone Lampre rider being closed down by Verbrugge. So Pinotti's still there at the moment.
And Verbrugge is he's finding it difficult to bridge this gap. He's hanging at 12-14 seconds, and he's not. He should be closing it. He should be closing it quicker and get up to Pinotti, and that way with two-man group up front they would have a very good chance of staying away. But one rider out the front, Pinotti, and Verbrugge chasing, it's difficult, and they're hanging out there at 25 seconds ahead of this group of three chasers, which was Renier, Nardello and Bouvard. So it's going to be difficult, but I think he's about to make it across to Pinotti now.
Looks like he might be easing back a bit, Pinotti. Do you think he's looked around and said, well, I might as well have company?
Well, yes, if there's a rider coming up, well, then the best thing to do is to wait and just share the pace pulling with two, and you have a better chance of going to the finish that way.
Well, the rest behind are now having a little go. What's the judgment like there, Sean? Because we've seen different ones going. Some are not doing it at all. Are they ones that are not doing nothing in their legs, or they're just playing brinkmanship, and then they'll come as and when they think they're going to get a chance to get it? Because it's been very fragmented behind.
Well, that's always the case when you have a group of 25 riders. It's a very big group, and as we said earlier, there was going to be some attacks, and when a number of riders get up the road, 3 or 5 riders get away. Well, then behind it's just attacking all the time, and that's it's very unorganised, and that's when you lose time on the guys who go out front and they start riding, like we see here, 2 guys who share the pace pulling on the front, because riding into the wind, and the guy is in the wind like is making a bigger effort. So the guy sit behind him for a number of meters, and then he take over the pulling on the front, and that's the way you can gain time that way.
Well, Verbrugge still pressing on with it, and who would take charge of this, though, Sean? When you've got a group like this coming along, would an experienced rider be expected to shout, change, drive, or they just all go at it together? I've certainly ridden in breaks quite a fair number, and I've heard this really like a senior rider start shouting at you to change and to go faster. And so are those lads back there like every man for himself?
Well, it's not possible to get organised back there, because there's a lot of attacks. They go for a big attack, and then the group come back again on them, and then it slows for a minute, and you lose your speed, and then there's somebody else attacks, and it's just unorganised all the time, and it's very difficult to organise a group when it's very big, like this one here of 25.
Well, it's coming down to 28 seconds, and that's interesting. That's a picture of that's like a digital camera, that is, and that's not exactly the ones that the heavy ones, some of our motorcycle camera chaps use. That's on a digital version, just showing you how it comes through. On the big old cameras that some of them still use, they used to cost about £30,000 a piece, the big ones. They're very heavy to hold up to, and when you look through the eyepiece, the rather one you saw there about the size of the picture postcard, generally speaking, with the other sort of cameras, you look through the eyepiece and all you've got in there is a thing about the size of a matchbox, and you look at that thing about the size of the matchbox, and I don't know if they're in colour now, but they used to be in black and white, and so you're looking down a little black and white image, and you're trying to pick up this lot, and you're getting your camera set up, and so that you can zoom in, and here he's got his focus, so he's got the rider here clear in his shot, but behind the focus is that the hedges and the grass behind is very blurred, and if he focused forward, he could go past the rider onto grass, and then he would see that rather on the right. So he has a lot to do to get the focus right and to get up to it. I'm not sure if they're automatically focusing now, the cameras, like you can have your automatic camera at home, and that you can override. I've tried some of my friends on the cameras to just show me how it works, but it's a very tricky job, and it's a very tiring job too as well. And on the wet, nasty days, they were getting soaked, the camera and the chaps on the motorbikes. However good your wet weather gear, it usually managed to trickle somewhere down your neck or up your sleeves or something. And standing on the foot pads or foot rests of the motorbike is very tiring too, when they want to stand up and get a shot over the top of the motorcyclist. So what you see in front of you here is brought to you by a lot of people working very hard indeed, people that you never see, they just work. And here we are, the man up in the helicopter now, getting the shots here, and 30 seconds by the way, according to what we've got now coming up. So they have it cut by about 10-15 seconds. Lovely rolling countryside here. Beautiful. Still 20 kilometres to go for the main field. So 14 minutes 40 seconds coming out of the headphones for the gap between the 25 or rather 23 and a bit riders and the main field, who've just come through the 20 kilometres to go mark. And just 9, so that's interesting. There's nearly 10 kilometres difference between the main group and riders here at the front for Verbrugge and Serpellini. No, not Serpellini, his mate, isn't it? Pinotti.
Pinotti, yes.
Yeah, Serpellini went first and then got blown back again.
And Verbrugge actually had his birthday yesterday. He was 27 yesterday.
A lot of riders do well on their birthday too, says he knowingly. They're up 30 seconds, and the main peloton way out of the frame. So with about 9 kilometres to go, it's still every man for himself, and that gap back to our 2 leaders having come down to around about 30 seconds, it may or may not be bridgeable, but it's certainly having an effect on the group behind. They seem to be so equally matched at the moment, Sean, don't they? I'm looking for some real cracks to appear, but
well, it's very difficult to, when you have a number of guys up the road and 2 riders away, and they have a gap of 30 seconds, which the 2 leaders have here. There's always a lot of attacks in the group, but nobody wants to go on the front and do the work and start pulling this group along. And we see here again the Bonjour guys, Chavanel, I think they're attacking all the time, but you don't pull back the leaders. The 30-second gap, you don't take it back. Maybe you take it down a couple of seconds, but when they all come together again, there's a slow down, and then it goes back up that 3 or 4 seconds again. So you never really start closing down on the leaders.
So look, could be about 30 seconds still back to this group here from our 2 leaders. And if your appetite's been whetted in the last 2 weeks for the Tour de France and you'd like to go out and see it next year, it's a lot further inland now. We're going to start next year at Luxembourg. It's a nice little place if you've never been there before, Luxembourg. Very picturesque in many respects. And we're starting in Luxembourg itself, and that will be on the 3rd of July is the opening of the official permanence. 4th of July we'll be having the medicals for everything else, and then 5th of July we'll present the teams at the National Sporting Centre, and then we really start the whole action on the 6th of July. I want to mark that off in your diary. 6th of July, when we have the prologue in the town of Luxembourg, 6.5 kilometre, quite a short one by the way, and it's got a bit of a mountain climb in it too, so this looks like Bogart off now at the moment, so it's not going to be a short one by a long one by any means, short at 6.5, but also with a climb, the mountain of Klausen. That's on the Saturday the 6th. Sunday the 7th, it goes Luxembourg, 195 kilometres, circuits round, and then it sets off on the 8th of July and goes down in the southerly direction. Can't tell you more than that, it won't be announced until October, but that's the Tour de France 2002, starting out from Luxembourg on Saturday with all the procedures on the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, with the racing start on Saturday the 6th of July. Just like to know that, but if you are going, it's always best to book your accommodation early on. If you're going on holiday anywhere in that direction, now you know you can detour your car, and according to the notes generally it says we're going south from Luxembourg once we've gone past that weekend. Right, back to racing, another one going off the front. I think, is this Bogart, Sean?
No, Nico Jalabert. His attacks is one of the best attacks we've seen of this group, because there's a lot of attacks coming, but there was nobody here to create a gap, and Nicolas Jalabert has actually opened some bit of a gap here. Decker is a one, yes, I was expecting him, but we haven't seen him at all here in this group, and I would be expecting to go in the attack and try to close this gap down, because he's a very good finisher over the last number of kilometres.
Yeah, I'd have thought that Decker and Bogart must have got together and ripped it along. But doesn't seem to be so happening. So the sun's still beating down. There's beautiful plane tree on either side, and there's nice avenue trees leading into the distance, typically French countryside, the rolling fields which we can see in the rolling hills, and the occasional little clumps of bushes and trees, and occasional hedges as well, and they're heading in toward the finish. Thank goodness it's a nice day. Bad luck for all those people that rode in the Étape de Tour when it was just a slight fall of snow on the top on that particular occasion, but it was very wet and very cold. In fact, Tony Doyle, who rode it, told me this morning that he took a number of people from the Nike operation over there, and they just found it so cold going down that it was pretty nasty conditions for them. So there we are, 5 kilometres to go. So congratulations to everybody who made that Étape de Tour, including Rob Hales, who was with Tony. Kilometres, and the way these two are riding, they seem to have settled their differences and prepared to ride together. The man who started it all went away just, I think, around about 20 odd kilometres from the finish, Pinotti. That's him in the pink and blue colours for Lampre-Duyken. And Rick Verbrugge inside 5 kilometres. They've got to lead. 12 seconds is the lead. Phew, it's come down to 12 seconds now. It was 30. They could still probably be caught if this bunch can get together. They've just corrected it. They've corrected it as 20 seconds. So 20 seconds, they've just corrected it now then. And that's been the call over the headphones. 20 seconds it is then. So that was a heart-stopping moment suddenly, wasn't it, when they gave the factors down to 12 seconds, Sean?
Yes,
but you were scratching your head, weren't you?
I was surprised, that it had come down, but we see Nicolas Jalabert attacking very, very hard, and I was wondering would that be possible, but these guys are riding very, very well. They're sharing the pace, pulling very, very well. So I would see it very difficult for this group to come back. The only way is, if you have a group of 4 or 5 riders, 6 riders who get organised and start working together to pull these two back, but otherwise it's going to be difficult.
Well, Rick Verbrugge charging along at the front with Pinotti, who started. Well, Verbrugge doing most of the work now. What a good season he's had too. He's always been there or thereabouts over the years. In fact, he didn't win anything last year. His second place in the Flèche Wallonne in the year 2000 was the best that he actually got last year, and he was well pleased with that one. But this year he won the Flèche Wallonne. That's the one where we got the tremendously hard climb of the Mur de Huy, and that Mur de Huy is a really nasty one, and they got 3 times, and Rick romped up that one to get the victory. And he also won the Critérium International. He had a stage in that as well, and he won a time trial in it. So his overall victory in it, having won the time trial and a stage as well. He won the prologue in the Giro d'Italia. Then he had the unfortunate to have a bad crash on the Giro d'Italia, and that put him out of the pink jersey. And now he is trying to get a stage in the Tour de France. Well, this is the run-in he's going to have. You can see it on your screen now, and it's well, Sean, talk us through this, because you opened your eyes up when you came along here, eh?
Yes, well, it is. Today's stage was a difficult one, but the final running, it straightens up pretty well. A number of kilometres out, but on the last kilometre, it's a good straight run. The only thing is it narrows about 250 metres from the line, and I was a bit worried about that. But with the group away, if we're coming in a bunch sprint, I think it would be a little bit dangerous. But I don't think any problem here. With the way the group is pulled out, and the peloton won't be sprinting, because all the points are actually gone with 25. Most of the points are gone with 25 riders up the road. Well,
one of the riders from the De La Tour team going up down, I think it's Goubert going up towards the finish. And
surprisingly, David, that the De La Tour have 3 riders up there. They have Brochard, they have Bouvard, and they have Gobert. And I'm surprised that some of those teams didn't get on the front and start ride, and to sacrifice 2 men to pull back this, because if you have that many guys in a group, men in the breakaway, well, then you can afford to do that.
And also the other people like Passabortola, they've been taken up now. In fact, I think they've just they're starting to go now. So I suppose if they toss the coin, decide which one's going to bury himself, surely.
Yes, well, they seem to be riding more on the front. They were doing a lot of tacking earlier on, and we see now the gap is coming down. Actually, it was 15, and now they're giving 10 seconds of a gap. So these riders seem to be organised better. They seem to be pulling better together. So the gap is coming down.
And they'll be inside all the way down the end. They pulled out the Mavic car, the yellow car, which says that they can see them. They're getting closer to them now, and the judges want the car out of the way. There is the final kilometre bridge. You can see it in the distance, that great arch showing the riders. They got 1 kilometre to go, and it just kinks a little bit round, then narrows down quite a bit, and the 23 riders or so behind desperately trying to close this gap down on our 2 break. On the front it's Rick Verbrugge there, that's leading the pace in the black and red colours for the Lotto team, and the pink and blue for the young rider Marco Pinotti for the Lamprey Daikon, desperately hanging on for grim death here. But the speed at which that bunch is going, they might just make it. Sean, what do you think? Might?
Yes, if they keep riding together, they can make it. But if they start slowing up and nobody wants to pull the sprint out, well, then it's possible. But I think there's not enough riders to pull out the sprint with the group behind. So I would see them making it. But again, they cannot hang around for long as they're doing here. Now they're looking at each other.
And the bunch then closing up. Young Pinotti only had a couple of victories in his career. The time trial in Bergamo with Beholkowicz, and then won last year in Poland, an unpronounceable stage, the Giro de Pole. Is he going to add a stage in the Tour de France to his stage victory in the Tour of Poland last year? He starts to go for it, and Rick Verbrugge's going here on the line. Then it's going to be for Verbrugge, surely. He's got the strength. He even had time to put his hands up on his glasses. That seems an amazing thing to do. Or are they falling off? And he's, whoa, has he got it? That was, I don't know, on the sprint, going in across the line, went to the rider from Fassa Bartolo to get the third place, Pataki. His teammate Tosato sacrificed himself to close it down. They managed to stir. The camera foreclosed, or shortened. What on earth are you doing here with his glasses, Sean, eh?
I don't.
For his nose!
I do not know, David. He was playing about with his glasses instead of sprinting on, and it looked to get close. But I think there was he had quite an advantage on the line.
Yeah, it's foreshortened from our camera point and from our commentary point. We can't easily look out the window and see it. And watch the sprint coming up here with Pataki going across into second spot, I'm sure. And so that's the third place man across the sign. I'll wait for confirmation of the rest of them. We were concentrating upon the maybe slow motion of that sprint for the first and second places, but he looked like he just got enough then. Tosato driving hard into third spot.
That's Pataki from Chavanel.
Yes, yeah.
Chavanel from Bonjour. But Tosato, if he had ridden earlier and took earlier on in the race, I think they could have come back and they could have got the sprint.
Yes, he peeled off a great rate of knots, but the gap was too great, wasn't it?
Yes. Just too
So the pack coming in over 15 minutes down by the time they got to the line, long after Rick Verbrugge had got his breath back and realised that he'd won his first ever stage in the Tour de France. The 6th of this year for Verbrugge, the 9th of his professional career, and it wasn't too long afterwards that we managed to get hold of him as the pack was coming in to finish all that time behind. Rick Verbrugge then, he had this to say to us. We had to be very attentive at the beginning of the stage because there were attacks from all sides. Aerts and Baguet were in a break. I took the chasing group, and then when we caught them, I attacked again. There were 5 of us at first. Brochard was there, Aerts was there, and then 20 other riders came, and so eventually the break of 25 became well established, and we took it on from there. Yesterday it was your birthday. Well, yeah, yesterday I offered champagne to my team, my teammates, all the personnel in the team, and my manager said that usually if you do this you win the day after, and they were right. How about that? Well, he's obviously pleased with that, isn't he? And there you see him on the podium for the first time in a Tour de France. By no means the first time this season. He's having a pretty good year so far. But what about the Italian Pinotti, the runner-up? I thought about waiting for Verbrugge at first, but then I changed my mind because I thought that he would probably be the best rider on his own at the finish. I thought I'd better not wait for him. It's just too bad that the end wasn't right. Maybe I attacked the group too soon because he did come back to me in the end. It was also the right moment. I think I was sure that at the end they'd all be fighting amongst themselves and that it would be impossible to react, so I decided to push on. Well, he tried his best, it didn't come off. Verbrugge, Pinotti the 1-2, with Pataki winning the bunch sprint from the rest of that breakaway group. And look at poor old Jonathan Wouters. Can you believe that closed eye? He was stung by a wasp on the rest day, and he gave up just after the start of this stage. The doctor was unable to help him because he couldn't give him any cortisone. According to the Le Monde newspapers, incidentally, 8 riders have been tested positive for corticoids, but they had prescriptions. This is the Tour de France organisation's Patrice Clerc speaking to us about this particular problem. He says the Wouters case is a paradox, and it's good that it's happened today because it's shown everybody just what needs to be done. His is the illustration that at the moment, for an accidental and benign infection like a wasp bite, we have to medicate a rider. If we do it, he'll be able to finish the Tour, and if not, he's got to retire. It's very difficult to have this position as an organisation. It's better to leave the decision, I think, to the doctors or to an independent authority. That would clear up the confusion that we currently have in these situations. I feel very sorry for Jonathan Wouters. Well, I don't think anybody feels sorry for this fella. He's really worked very, very hard for the last 2 victories and, well, almost certain barring accidents, his 3rd one coming up in Paris on Sunday. No change to the overall classification. All those riders finished in the peloton, so Urik still has that 5-minute deficit. Will it be Kovalev or will it be Biloki for the 3rd place on the podium? I wonder. It might come down to the time trial, which of course is on Friday. We shall have to wait and see about that. Remember I told you how Jens Vogt would be gradually climbing up, and Brad McGee now has come into the picture lower down in this table of the leaders. Vogt, in fact, up to second place now behind Eric Decker, who won the Coeur de Lion prize for the most aggressive rider in the Tour de France last year. Jens Vogt obviously is not going to catch Decker in this competition today, but obviously still some stages to go. He's always on the lookout for a break going away, but then so too is Eric Decker. But Decker at the moment, top dog.
Well, that's the Eurosport version based on the longest distance taken, and you saw the figures up there on your screen, but I certainly know the one that is for the Coeur de Lion that Stephen Roche is involved with is more to do with, say, aggression. That's not thumping somebody on the nose, but it's how you ride the race and how it isn't always just a long break. So we've got two sort of aggressive riders here, and they do have a competition, that particular competition, where the man sits on a set of scales or stands on a set of scales, and his weight in cheese is then given to a charity of his choice. In fact, I think they work the cheese back into pounds sterling, not or pounds francs or francs money, rather than into give the cheese to this particular charity. But that's what they do, and also have a special bike for one of the local cycle clubs too as well. That happens in the village in the morning before we get underway with the racing. So that maybe answers Mr. Hewitt's question. Also said, what's happening to Sean Yates and Robert Miller? Robert Miller rides bicycles and tests them for one of the monthly magazines, and I won't say which one it is, I'll probably get it wrong, because I have both of the major ones. This is the sporting ones, and just getting confirmation the gap is over 20 minutes, and we're getting some aggression here from Mr. Voigt coming off the front there. So Robert is still around about the place, still slightly involved in cycling. I don't know what else he does at the moment. I haven't seen Robert for some time now, but what a great mountain climber and winner of the polka dot jersey in the Tour de France. Sean Yates, well, if you want to know what he's doing, he's still racing his bike, and he's actually doing some building work, I think, at the moment, just to keep his hand in, because the Linda McCartney team folded at the start of this year, and I saw him on the weekend before the Tour de France started down there at Cardiff when we had the National Road Championship, and he rode that. He'd ridden the 25-mile championship on the Saturday, and he finished sixth in that, and then he had the audacity to drive all the way to Cardiff to ride the 120-odd mile National Road Championship. I don't think Sean actually got to the end of it, and as he's, as I say, getting on a bit, and he probably won't like that, but he's no sort of spring chicken. He's still riding, and he gives a thrashing to people who are normally turning up and thinking, well, I'll do this, and Sean goes straight back past like that. So he's still like riding the bike because he likes it. That's a big thing about cyclists, like we saw Steve Bauer earlier on, like Sean Kelly here in the commentary box. They go on riding because they like it, and as Sean Yates likes his riding. Do bear in mind, if you didn't know who he was, Sean took the yellow jersey in the Tour de France some years ago, and it was a great stalwart. The engine is known for all the teams he rode for. You could rely upon Sean Yates to close down the gaps, ride himself into a standstill. Great team man, probably one of the greatest team men I've seen working over many years, and much admired by the group. But Sean, I think you would agree with me on that, how Sean Yates was liked by the peloton too. Some people don't quite fit in, but Sean, I always got the impression anybody was prepared to say hello to him, eh?
Yes, well, yes, he was very well liked in the peloton, and you have riders like that, and Yates, he was, very well liked in the peloton, and he was definitely a great team rider, a domestique in the teams he was in. He did, he did an enormous amount of work, and he liked doing that. He was a guy who could ride in the front for miles upon miles, hours upon hours, and of course, it's not easy to get riders who can do that every day. And Yates was one of the great guys who was able to do that, and that's why he was always looked at in the team as being a very important rider.
And this man here, Voigt, reminds me a bit of Yates too, like that. He has that same tenacity at the front to keep riding.
Yes, certainly has. Voigt has that, and just look at this group of 7 men now. The two strongest on paper, Voigt and McGee. They've gone up the road, the two of them, and it proves, as I said earlier, it's a hard finish. It's very undulating, and I think the strong men will really come out on top, and we're seeing that now.
Do you think they might have gone too soon though, Sean? Because we know, perhaps they don't know, what lies ahead.
No, well, I think they're definitely the two strongest strongest men for me, they would be the guys who I would be taking a watch on. If you're in the group with them, because Voigt, he always goes for a long one. He's never afraid to go at 20, 30, 40 kilometres in the finish. And McGee, of course, as well, is a very good rider. So I think the two strongest men, definitely on paper, are going up the road. I think it will be difficult for the other guys to come
crash back to the main group, and this is what we predict, but this is not a narrow road. Who's gone down? Lots of pinky jerseys, some telecom ones there at the moment, and a lot of straightening of handlebars and saddles going on, and I can't see any, but one or two close to the edge of the ditch, and I see one or two riders going back to help pick them up. It's like knit one, purl one, put two together. It's just they've all got knitted together. Some have smashed the wheels, some are waiting for fresh bikes to come, and that is the danger. And this is not the narrowest part of the course. Amazing.
No, it's not. This is what we were talking about. There is some descents, and the corners are very, very tight, very deceiving actually. And the one I was talking about, 8 kilometres, is a very, very tight one for me. But there were, before that there were quite a few, and this is one of them now. Probably that's the riders coming down very fast, and just got caught out. And there's quite a few riders there still. We see a Domo Farm Fritz rider, a Rabobank. We see Rudy Pevenash here.
That's a chap with the white shirt and directing operations. One of his riders is not moving at the moment, but the worst one undoubtedly is the rider who's somehow wedged into the gap between the Armco and that little building.
It seems like Hepner sitting on the road there from Telecom. And Livingstone is on his bike there just beside him. So Hepner seems to be injured. He's not trying to get back on his bike.
Well, going back to the leaders here, that's Brad McGee and Jen Voigt. And we're listening on our headphones to pick up some of the numbers now. They'll come across any minute now. About 20 rides, they say, came down. It's a bit broken up from the race radio now, so we'll probably pick it up. That was at 197 kilometres, and it looks like Montgomery is also the man we saw in the ditch. Well, we'll wait to see the outcome of our shot from the camera of the crash in the main pack. Meanwhile, the race goes on at the front as the two riders you've just seen get away from the riders here. Nicky Sorensen here at the back, and Bocharov in the pale blue on the left, and with him at the moment Perez in the blue and yellow for the Festina team. These three chasing after these two riders up in front at the moment. Brad McGee doing a lot of work. They're two very similar riders, aren't they, Sean? How would you rate them? Are they going to ride together to the finish, or one try and get away from the other? They do seem to be riding well together.
Well, yes, they will ride for a time. They'll definitely ride together. I'm not sure what Bradley McGee is, how fast he's in the sprint. So Voigt will know that better than any of us, because of course they race together all year. So first of all, they will try and create a gap that they will be pretty sure they can stay away from these three chasers. We see Sorensen here from that's Nicky Sorensen, of course. And we see Bocharov. I think the two leaders will ride until they get a gap that they feel comfortable with. But I would see Voigt trying to attack again, because he will not be happy just to come to the finish with this guy. I think he'll be trying to secure the win and try to go it alone.
Well, when Voigt goes through, it's almost difficult to follow him, though. He doesn't seem to go through at a rate. He seems to put a jump on, huh?
Yes, well, he rides very, very hard, and he pulls it along very, very strong, and he's a perfect guy to be in a break with, because you can ride with him, but he will do more than anybody else in the group. And we see that if it's just with a 2-man group or with a 10-man group, he always does more than anybody else. So he's a great man to be away in a break like this with, and if you bluff a bit, you can pretend you're suffering a bit, and that way he will just keep on riding and ride harder again. So a great guy to be in the break with.
Well, it looked a bit narrow down there, but you wait to see the roads which are coming just a bit further down here, and the peloton really hasn't. And so it seems that Castrosana was also implicated in that crash. Getting some odd numbers coming through now. We don't know how they're actually feeling right now, but they're not.
Waters, Montgomery are still on the roadside. So this crash, as we said in the very final, the last 10-15 kilometers is very dangerous, but in the early parts as well there's some corners, and maybe in the peloton they weren't concentrating fully because the US posters were riding in the front, and the guys in the bunch are not concentrating at 100%, and that's often the case when you're riding along at 75% and you're relaxed and something go wrong. Well, then a lot of riders go down. When you're going very fast and everybody's concentrating 100%, well then the risk is less.
Well, on the left, Bradley McGee riding for La Française des Jeux. On the right, Jens Voigt riding for Crédit Agricole. Brad McGee riding for a French company, the Australian. They brought him on very steady since he turned pro in 1995 he turned pro, and now with this German rider who speaks a lot of English, and one of his best mates, Voigt's best mate, is Stuart O'Grady. This gorgeous sight coming along the lake here, people out on the side of the road, they've been picnicking here. We came through, must have been 4 hours ago, 4.5 hours ago, we drove along here. The people were out then enjoying what is a beautiful day for cycle racing, perhaps a little bit on the warm side, but really the wind has not caused any trouble. The roads were not too difficult until we got here. There were a few ups and downs early on when we left the start at Castel Sarrazin to Saran. 151 riders that took the start on this race, which have taken past the 2,700 kilometre mark, and they've averaged just under 40 miles an hour, 39 and a bit kilometres. I think they might just nudge over the 40 kilometre marker today on this 2,000 starting at 227 kilometre stage. That's 142 mile stage 16 of the Tour de France. Another road stage for them tomorrow, another long one. We're having some 3 long stages back to back. Then we go on to the time trial, and then the stage up, which will take us into Paris for the big finale at the end of it all. The peloton way back now, some 20 minutes behind the leaders. I think they've been a bit rattled by that crash down there. The noise will have come through, and they'll be looking around for the rest of their teammates to come up. But they're going through Tulla here, and it's a long way from the narrow roads which we've been seeing on our screen, and certainly the riders will have to be very careful, very vigilant on the run in toward the finish, and that I think was just a little taster at what we saw further back down there of what is yet to come. They ride so close together. It's amazing how close they can ride. They rely upon each other, not to do anything stupid, but if something happens when one goes out off the road like that, comes back into the pack or falls over, then a lot go down if they're packed as close together as they are. This is the best place to be out the front, but not when you've been out there since the 60 kilometre mark, because they have done nearly 160 kilometres out on the front of these two riders. That's about 100 miles, and what has turned out to be a very hot and slightly humid day. The temperatures have been at least 30 degrees. That was the forecast one. It's got hotter and hotter since then. So here they go up towards the final part of the course, where a big crowd is gathering in this little town, little village. What do you call it when there are only 280 people living here in Saran? Not the sort of a place you'd normally see the Tour de France finish, but with the museum here for President Jacques Chirac, over the earth people come from far and wide to see it, and they'll enjoy the countryside, they'll enjoy the museum, I'm sure, but the people here enjoying the race, looking to see who's going to win today. Riders just ahead of these 3. We seem to have lost the other couple at the moment. Sean, any information about how far back the others are? They're completely out of contention now, because McGee and Voigt are down the road, and we've got here Bocharov together with Perez out there, and Sorensen. Yep. Any news about what's happened to the other two, or can we discount them?
Well, I think we can discount them, because we see they were dropped on their own. So Stefan Hellert was one of the ones which was dropped quite early. Senor, he also was dropped, so they were alone. I think for those it will be not possible to get back to this group, and the gap is we were getting 20 seconds of a gap from Voigt McGee to this three-man chasing group. And also coming over the radio, there was, after the crash, Hepner was taken into the ambulance. Also Putti from Faso Portola, and it seems both of those were holding their collarbone, so they seem to be a collarbone problem. And also Waters from Rabobank was still sitting on the roadside, and Montgomery from Française de Gio.
Walters started out in a good way. I hope he doesn't finish the ambulance.
Yes, well, he was on the roadside for a long time. He seemed to be suffering quite a lot from the fall. So it's terrible to go out at this moment, because you've come through the Alps, the Pyrenees, the sense that those guys have been over, and the risks they have taken, and you come down a crash like this, which is really something. It's a lack of concentration, really. As I said, when you're riding along the bunch and there's a team setting a pace, rolling along at the front, and everybody's a little bit more relaxed, and that's when the crash occurs. And when it does occur at that moment, a lot of people go down because they're not concentrating at 100%.
But at least Walters has got a jersey and a stage victory to take home if he doesn't finish in one piece. But that's how he gets there.
Yes, well, it's a terrible way to go out of the tour, because so close to the end after getting through the mountains, as I said. Also, Verbruggen also was it came over the race radio that he got his cap caught in his rear wheel, and it got blocked, and he almost fell down, crashed down. He had a job to control his bike, but he actually managed to get stopped without falling. So he was in a bit of a hard look yesterday. Of course, we see him in that sprint yesterday when the glasses were falling down onto his face, and he had to take him up on two or three occasions in the sprint.
Well, the impetus here being applied by the team manager. Mark Meadows just come up here to urge on his man. Just saw a bit of enthusiasm and encouragement coming from the team car.
No, I think it was the second team car, actually.
Voigt, they're two equally matched. Look at the shape of them. Not quite riding as flat back to O'Grady, but there's a lot of similarities there, isn't there? Yes,
well, both are very good riders in this sort of discipline, and as I said, when they attacked, I think they were the strongest of the group. On paper, and on performance, you would be marking those guys, and I think they just were the strongest. When they attacked, the others just were not able to follow.
Well, back minute to Urlo, 1:15 to Senior. So the two chaps that are off the back of these two here and the three afterwards, that doesn't look to me as if they're going to make it. This, by the way, is a very nice piece of road, and I suppose if it's in the area which the Madam President represents, she's the representative in Parliament for this Corrèze area here, then certainly if we want the road to be remade for the Tour de France, there isn't much difficulty doing that. So that's been remade. We drove along, it's a nice piece of tarmac, and looks very nice and shiny and clean and very respectable, and I'm sure that the locals will like that. And it's also being done because a lot of people are going to come here in future years to the museum of Jacques Chirac, or Jacques Chirac's museum, and this road will be very nice to travel along. Doesn't look like it's going to need to repair for an awful long time now, but beware, this nice smooth straight bit here, and the corners looking nice and gentle further down there, is just a lull before the storm, because I think after this bit that we got to the worst part, wasn't it, Sean?
Yes, from this point on it is quite dangerous, and there's a lot of very tight corners on the descent. The other thing, you go in under the trees and you come out again from under them, and there's a lot of shadows, and it's difficult to see the line of road as you're going through the trees, under the trees, and just the road is a new surface, of course, and that sometimes is not the greatest, because it's not laid that long, and it can if you take a corner very, very fast, you can slide out very easy on the newer surface.
Thank goodness, and it isn't raining, because I always feel that those newly made tarmac roads have a bit more slippiness about them than anything else.
Yes, they certainly have these new laid tarmac surfaces. When they get the first rain after being laid, the oil seems to come, or the tar seems to be very, very slippy, and they are very, very dangerous at that moment.
And from what we can see, no tar bubbling, because that's the other thing. It's so hot, 30 degrees, and new laid road can do that. But it's going to be jolly nice, these chaps. It's very pleasant going through the fir trees here. People park to the side of the road in the shade of the trees, having their picnics earlier on, and watching these riders come through. A long old day is going to be for them, because the publicity cavalcade went through about 40 minutes ago, maybe nearly an hour. That took about 40 minutes to get through. These lot will come through in dribs and drabs. Then they've got to wait again something like about 20 minutes for the main group to come through, who I can assure you will not come in one big pack. A, the road isn't wide enough, and B, there's an acid will climb, and C, before they get there, I think the twists and turns will... No. 4 riders taken to hospital from the crash. I think you've got the names, Sean. Who's gone?
Yes, as I said, Hepner, Waters, Montgomery and Putty, they're all after being taken into the ambulance to hospital.
So that was our rundown that we had with those 4. What a shame to get this far and to end up the Tour de France on stage 16 in the back of our ambulance. We wish them all well and a happy recovery. In the green pants, Jens Voigt, and the La Francaise Girarda with 10 kilometres to go. Well, Brad McGee and Voigt, they know each other. They come from very different backgrounds. In fact, Brad McGee in the grey and the white here with the 4-leaf clover on his back, riding for La Francaise du Jour, comes from Sydney in Australia, and he got a bronze medal in the events back there, the Olympic Games, when he was riding with the team pursuit squad. He's also a good rider at short distances too. He won the prologue in the Tour of Normandy last year, won a couple of stages in the Tour de l'Avenir, and he started off this season too with a couple of good placings overall in the smaller stage races too, and winning prologues too as well. And he has mainly come off the track. When I go back to our 3 riders here, Sorensen at the back and the Festina rider in front, and then the one from AG2R. So they're at 10 kilometres to go, so the gap is what, 39 kilometres a moment?
118.
Yes. No, well, it's grown then. It's grown.
Yes, it's definitely going to be down to the victory for the stage is going to be between these 2 guys, Voigt and McGee.
Well, is Brad McGee going to add to his medals on the track and his victories in the lesser stages, a stage victory in the Tour de France? That's him at the back at the moment then. Born on the 24th of February 1976 in Sydney, Australia. World Junior Track Champion, 4 times record breaker on the track as a junior. Bronze medal in the Olympic Games at Atlanta in the Australian team pursuit squad. Also taking bronze medal in the Olympic Games in Sydney. That's him on the front, Brad McGee. Well, he and Stewie know each other well. They've ridden together. Stuart O'Grady in the green jersey, back in the main pack. Will be happy, I think, to have a countryman up there to take the 35 points, all the 30 points, at the end of the stage today. Also, Stewie will be happy, I'm sure, to see his mate Jens Voigt in this group. 2 of his friends then, battling it out together, taking the weight off the shoulders of Stuart O'Grady, because Jens Voigt is a very great mate of Stewie's. They spend time together at each other's homes. They relax together, and Jens Voigt, the 100-kilometre champion of Germany in 1993, shows that he can time trial, and that's what he's doing now. This is typical Jens Voigt stuff. He wins the odd race here and there when he's allowed freedom down there on one of his long lone breakaway rides. He's been overall winner of the Criterium International. Won the Grand Prix Eddy Merckx in Belgium. And I don't know which ride he rode with that one, but he did it in a 2-up time trial. And certainly he's a strong rider, comes from Germany but lives near Toulouse. Not far from here is where we start out this morning. And if anybody's urging on a rider from the main pack there, where the green jersey of O'Grady's back about 10 or 12 from the front, he'll be spurring on his great mate Jens Voigt, both from Credit Agricole. Split loyalties then for O'Grady, and for the riders we're just getting some more information about the crash, by the way.
Yes, Julik was also in that crash, and Gouverneur was also quite badly injured. He had his knee was his knee and his head, they said he was very much marked, but he got back on his bike.
So we pause then to build up the two riders who are out there in the front. Now you know who they are, now you know what they're trying to do, and is it possible for those two to stay away? Because this lad Botterov looks like a much better climber than Voigt and
yes, well,
Brad McGee, and it's just a 1.5 kilometre climb, that final one, you know.
Yes, but Voigt and McGee they have a minute and 18 seconds of an advantage over Butcherov, Sorensen and Perez, and we see Butcherov now attacking with Sorensen, trying to hold on his wheel. Perez they have dropped, as we can see here, so I think it'll be impossible for him to get, as we see those two going down. It's going to be very difficult for him to come back, because a minute and 18 or minute and 20 seconds of advantage, and those two so strong, and we see the descent here now, what we're talking about. Some of these corners get very, very tight, and the riders could get caught out, but when you're in a group of two, well then you have much more possibility of managing the corners, but in a big group it can be quite dangerous.
So imagine what it's going to be like when the big bunch comes through here, and bearing in mind that points go down to 25th place in the green jersey points competition. There are no Kingdom Mountains points at stake here, though. It is a nasty little climb that could have warranted probably a 4th category, but they decided not to put it on this particular climb. Jalabert looks like he's got a point to keep the Kingdom Mountains competition jersey. Oscar Sevillo's been the good man for the white jersey. Can't see a change there. Yellow jersey, can't see a change there either. So the green jersey is the only one that's under pressure, and O'Grady will have to watch himself on these winding roads, and I'm sure he and Zabel will be watching each other like hawks too, but it's almost, I would say, every man for himself for Sean, but you've got to be very, very aware, haven't you, on this part? Yes, well, you have to be you have to be very much aware, but I think in the last 10 or 15 kilometers they will be, because everybody will know the running is dangerous. There's a lot of downhills and a lot of quiet corners, so all the favourites will want to stay on the front, but I would, as I said earlier, I would see the Credit Agricole guys starting to ride hard, because the finish, I think it would suit O'Grady with the uphill more than Zabel today. Some time to wait for that, by the way, if you were planning to go shopping or go out and mow the lawn or whatever you're going to do when we got to end the programme. When these two and the rest start coming across the line, don't expect you can sort of nip off then, unless you want to nip off and set your watch and come back, because what was the last time check the main pack, Sean? It was quite considerable, maybe getting worse, eh?
Yes, it was around the 19 minutes, I see, the last time. I think it might be growing out. It's actually went out 23 at one moment.
And it'd be difficult to go any faster, would it? Here, the main pack?
Yes, well, I think the main pack they will not gain much time on these two guys, Voigt and McGee, because it's not a place where you can put a lot of riders in the front and ride hard. And with the corners, I don't think the bunch will go that much faster than those two leaders. And what about the general classification? Where are these two then in general classification? Sean will rummage amongst the papers. Inside 5 kilometres to go then. On the front of Voigt in second spot with a sort of darkish grey pants is Brad McGee from Australia, the La Française du Jour rider versus the Credit Agricole rider. Inside 5 kilometres, and by goodness, it's not all downhill. There's a nasty little sharp one, nearly 2 k's at the back of it all. Voigt and Brad McGee, don't think they're much danger overall, though, Sean? No, not at all. Well, Jens Voigt is he's the best place of the two, 71st in the general at 1 hour 51 minutes 26 seconds, and Bradley McGee is at 110 tenths at 2 hours, 31 minutes and 50 seconds in general.
So who was the best in this breakaway group, which went away after some 60 odd kilometres and then has been away all the way to now? And I don't think they're going to get caught, the remnants of that 7-man group.
Well, Butcherov was Alexander Butcherov from AG2R. He was 30th in general at 57 minutes 5 seconds. He was the best placed, and the rest were more than 1.5 hours behind in the general.
So if he gets 30 off that at 20, he could probably move up into the top 20, Butcherov, so he'll have something to show for his pains, from 30 to 20. A little bit more money, not a lot, but certainly he's been there on the telly, and that's what many of the sponsors want, and AG2 are happy, I think, with him being out there today on this second last major road stage before we hit the time trial, and then for the time trial we do another road run, and we got that lovely run into Paris on the Sunday. So these two really beginning to motor. This is typical territory for these two, where the winding roads, bits of straights, bits of bends, bits of up, bits of down, and they seem to be working absolutely like clockwork. They'd be a good time trial pair, this, wouldn't they? Team time trial, this is so well matched.
Yes, they definitely would make a very good two-up team time trial team. There's a lot of pressure on McGee here, I think, from his director, and actually the team car came up was number 2, and it was Gayant, who was a professional some years ago. They haven't won a stage, of course, this year, so there'll be a lot of pressure on Bradley McGee to try and pull off this stage. And I think if he can get the finish with Voigt, I think he could win it in the sprint, because from the track, I think he would have that little bit extra in the sprint.
So let's see if he can pull it off, and this is the course he's got to take getting towards the finish then. And that's the run then. There are 3 kilometres to go for the 2 leaders, and you see they're coming round here. Bit of a sharp run, and this is where he gets a bit naughty towards the end. Twiston, you're seeing them now, and this one here. Then that last kilometre, quite amazing, as you come round to the little red kite there, it's a sharp left hand, and it goes whoop, and it goes up and up and up. Nice good surface, not too narrow, but it does not go up it after 232 kilometres of races. So Voigt and McGee are going away now, as they've been doing ever since we got on the sort of conky bit here, and they've left the 3 men chasing 1.5 behind, so they've got it now. It's certainly going to be for Brad McGee a rescue act for La France if he gets to the line first, because they haven't, as Sean was saying, got much to show for it. Looking down the teams that have succeeded so far, the opening stage was taken in the prologue by Francis Moreau riding for the Festina team. Zabel got the next one for Telecom, then Voters of Belgium got the one for Lotto. Zabel got the next stage. Jalabert got it for CSC after that. Credit Agricole won the team time trial. That's Jens Voigt's team, so he's already played his part in getting a victory. Kursipu for the AG2R team, where Butcherov back there, they got a stage as well. That was stage 13. Jalabert came through again to get another stage victory. Decker for Rabobank got a stage victory. Armstrong then got them for US Postal. He's had 3 of those. Cardenas getting a victory for the Kelme team, and Leiseca for the Escadel team. For the Australian O'Grady, he also rides Credit Agricole. Of course, he's got the green jersey now. Simon from Bonjour held the yellow jersey as well for 4 days, and so those teams have all been getting some pieces of the action. Other teams still looking for something to show the boss when they get to Paris on Sunday. And La Française de Jeux, their headquarters is not far north of Paris, very close to the Charles de Gaulle airport, so a lot of Parisians know of the La Française de Jeux, apart from the fact that their name and logo is all over the Lotto booths across the whole and length and breadth of France. As yet they've not got much to show for their endeavours. They were hoping, I think, for better, particularly perhaps from Casper in the sprints, but he's not to show, and I think he had a 2nd or 3rd place. That was the best. So now it's Brad McGee, the battling Aussie, who spent all his professional career with the Française de Jeux, being nurtured and brought on with them, able to get past Jens Voigt. Whoa, Sean, what about that? That was just a bit of an accidental flick when Voigt came out? I don't think either of these two would be rough with each other. What do you think?
No, I don't think. I think that was just the corner, the line he took. He had to make a little bit of movement. I don't think it was. I don't think he set out to do that. But in this sprint, it's the finishing straight is very, very short, as we see there a number of seconds ago. And the guy who starts on the front, I think if he certainly would not have started too early. But if you judge it right and you're on the front with 250 metres to go, the way it turns into the finishing straight, I think you've got the advantage there to be on the front.
Well, Voigt's taking the lead right now. That's just after the kilometre sign. Take us from this. Is he got to stay there, Voigt, or will he try and fox McGee? What would you know?
Well, I think Voigt, he will stay there. That's the type of rider he is. And McGee, he's definitely in the best position for the moment. Leave Voigt do the pulling from here on in, and the guy who comes around now at this moment and takes the front, well then, it's going to be the wrong position to be in.
Well, McGee is moving on the inside, looking very confident. Voigt's been doing all the work there. McGee has just moved to the front now, but he's up against the barriers. No room for a Voigt on the inside. Head to head, here they go. Voigt starts to accelerate a bit from behind. So McGee still down in the hooks, but Voigt on the left-hand side, hanging on to the brake levers. Entirely different position, these two riders. It's such a hard sprint for these riders. They've been out there for 100 miles now. It looks like both of them are dying on their pedals, and Sean's shaking his head here. What's that, Sean, eh?
I don't think McGee has got it. He's definitely in the wrong position, and Voigt, Voigt is just too strong for him.
Strong is hardly the word. He's just romping away now. And if you'd been in the commentary box with me, you'd have seen how Sean nodded his head, saying, no, he hasn't got it. Sean can read this so well. And why is he looking back, Brad McGee? Doesn't he know where the chasers are? They gave over a minute. Surely you would know that. Or is he just being completely distraught and doesn't know what to do next?
Well, it looks like he's not sure how far the group is behind the chasers. And he was. I see when he took the front and his pedal, the way he was pedaling, I knew that he hadn't got it, that he was suffering, and Voigt was just too strong for him.
So Voigt gets the stage, Brad McGee gets the disappointment, and La France says you'll get back to the drawing board. They've been trying so hard. Crédit Agricole, my goodness, what a tour they've had so far with that team time trial success. Brilliant that was too, and the fact they've got O'Grady still in the green points journey. Bear in mind that if all the 7 riders that were in that breakaway group come across the line in those top places, they snaffle most of the important points, and when the bunch come into sight, or what's left of it by the time we see it, the points score for the next man over in 8th spot will only be something like, as he flicking through a bit of paper, 18 points I think it is, yes, for the man who comes over in 9th spot. Botcharov then coming through here, looks like he could be at a 3rd spot. Nice little chirpy little climber, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this young lad in the future. He's got the typical build of a man go over the mountains. He's got the aggressive nature to go with a break like we saw today, and Nicky Sanderson with the CSC team. Well, CSC have confirmed, by the way, that they're going to be sponsoring part of the Tour de France to do with the computer performance graphics and so on. The CSC, the Computer Science Corporation, they're very much involved in the way in which they set up computers for big industry, big businesses, and they are involved in that here, looking after that IT section of the Tour de France. Now they've got a man coming here in 4th place, but also they've got Laurent Jallouet in the polka dot jersey. So CSC, the team which has been through many sponsors, and Bjorn Rees must be pleased with the way things have gone, particularly with young Sorensen here. It's not the other Sorensen who's the oldest man in the race, this is the younger one here, and coming across the line. Botcharov, well, Sean, did he lead out too long, or is he still going to go for it, eh?
Yes, well, Sorensen looks like he was going for, I think Sorensen thought himself he was going to be third, but Borochov, he surprised him, and he came back at him again.
Well,
actually, I had Sorensen written in for 3rd place when I see him starting that sprint, but to my surprise as well, Botcharov came back very, very strong.
So Botcharov then, I think it's another man who's riding one of his first Tour de France's. Yes, he's only 26 years of age. This is his first Tour de France, and in comes Perez from the Festina team, who are disappointed when Moto dropped out of the Tour. He was up there in the yellow jersey to begin with, and no longer on the race now, so that was disappointment for them when they lost him. Oh, he's in a state. Wow. Well, he opened his mouth, he was sucking all the air. That just shows you how they ride themselves to a standstill. He was in such a state when he came across the line, Brad McGee. Bear in mind, for a chap who spends his life as a junior riding pursuits on the track, and I think the junior distance for the track is only about 2,000 metres. Then he went up to the 4,000 metres eventually with the 2 rides he did in the Olympics. He's also been out there riding in the World Championships too. He's then been onto a roadman. This is probably one of the longest races he's done, 142 miles for Brad McGee. And it's so hot too, breathing in this atmosphere. Sean, what's it like today, just out there?
Yes, it's very, very energy sapping out there today. You know, the parcours is very difficult because it's so undulating, and of course the riders, you know what they've been through the last week with these mountain stages in the Pyrenees, and this sort of, you know, very, very warm, heavy weather, no air, no wind whatsoever. So it's very, very energy sapping out there, and we can see the way the guys are coming in after being out of this long breakaway. You know, they're just empty.
So the bunch not long to come into sight.
So Saran seeing a very exciting finish to that stage of the Tour de France from Jens Vogt. But poor old Brad McGee, you really had to feel for him, didn't you? So tired, and walking, helped by one of his helpers after the finish.
Not much at all, man. There wasn't much going on in my body. There wasn't much going on in my head. I've never been that empty.
Is it possible to try something?
I couldn't even come past Voigt in the last 5. It was only when he stopped pedaling could I come to the front. But you never give up trying. You keep going, and that was it. I had nothing more.
Well, this fella did have plenty in the tank when he got to that last kilometre, didn't he? And Jens Vogt getting the reward I think many people would probably say he's been so close to getting for quite some time. His first Tour de France stage victory, adding to his previous 4 victories of this season. His 16th professional career victory, and we caught up with the stage winner after he'd recovered. I think today I worked very hard for that victory. Before the break, the first break, I was in that one as well. In fact, I was in every break right from the start. First with 15, then 20, and I was right there from the start of the stage. So I think I deserved it. It was no luck. I worked for it. I said to myself, it's got to work. I've got to win this stage. And at the end, the best 2 riders from that 7-man break were left, and it worked for me. It worked out really well. Well, there's confirmation. You see the first 7 there, all coming in well ahead of the peloton, almost 26 minutes behind the peloton, led over the line by Eric Zabel, 1 place ahead of Stuart O'Grady. And here we see the peloton coming through, and at this stage you can see that the 2 key men are right up there. There goes the yellow jersey, and look to the left of the picture. There you see Eric Zabel, typical style, and O'Grady trying hard to come round him, but having to give best to the German, losing 1 point of the lead that he still has over Eric Zabel so far for that all-important green jersey. Zabel is going to try right to the Champs-Élysées, I'm sure, to make it a 6th green jersey in a row, but who knows, perhaps the Australian will have the better of him come Sunday on the Champs-Élysées. That really is going to be a very, very exciting thing. But it's been a very good week for the Credit, a very good tour, I should say, for Credit Agricole. Roger Leger, their team manager, said that we've managed our tour well, reasonable and not too high targets we've set for ourselves. We know we can't win the Tour de France itself, so we focused on the green jersey, on the yellow one where possible, and on our team time trial, which showed that our collective physical strength was stronger on this tour than before. I know we've nobody for the general classification at the moment, but we do have physical strength, and now we've seen that again here towards the end of this Tour de France. I think Roger Leger very, very satisfied with the way things have gone for Credit Agricole. They're right up there at the top, just behind Team Telecom, in terms of the teams that have won the most money so far. And there's confirmation of that point situation. The gap closing by just 1 point on this stage, but still that 12-point advantage for Stuart O'Grady. It might be good, but of course it could all disappear with 1 stage win from Eric Zabel. Lance Armstrong, of course, continues in yellow. It looks like, barring accidents, that's going to be the way it is. No change at all there in the top 10. Nice to see Oscar Sevilla, the little young rider, in 7th place overall. He's had a great tour. François Simon still there in 5th place. Now, what about that crash? Look at Thierry Gouvenou. He came in over 38 minutes after the two leaders, one of about 20 riders involved in the crash. Several riders came down. Nierman was another rider who finished, the Rabobank rider, but sadly he's decided that he can't go any further. Here's Marshall Gaillon, the La Française des Jeux team manager, talking about Sven Montgomery, who ended up in hospital. He said the descent was very curvy and in some parts you could go up more than 50 miles an hour. So if a rider had a moment of inattentiveness, maybe taking a drink or some food, it could easily have caused that crash. One rider, well, that's his own rider, of course, hit the security barrier and it was very dangerous. That's why we've had 5 riders retired and so many broken collarbones tonight. Yes, 3 broken collarbones. Wouters, Hepner and Pozzi all broke their collarbones. Sadly, Sven Montgomery has a fractured skull. Garcia Acosta, well, he's got a wrist injury, and Nierman, as I say, he got back on his bike. He did finish the stage, the German from the Rabobank team, but has since announced after consultations with the doctor that he too will go no further. That man looks like he's going to go all the way, though, to the Champs-Élysées in the polka dot jersey. Laurent Jalabert shaking hands with the local joint mayor of the region, who of course is the wife of Chirac, Jacques Chirac, and he gave her the flowers. Wasn't that nice? There's confirmation of the points in the mountains competition. Well, the tour moves on. We're getting nearer to Paris, are we not? This is a look now at stage 17. From Brive-la-Gaillarde to Montluçon, a trip of 194 kilometres. Laurent Fignon says tomorrow this stage is going to be less difficult than the previous 2 stages. It's a little...
went out of sight.
Well, I think the difference was today that we did not have a Bonjour rider in the break, and they have been present, I think, every day, these breakaways. So they seem to be the team that started the chasing, and then of course they were joined by the Mappé guys and then by the Lampreys, and it just built from there on. So you know, we haven't seen the Lamprey riders on the front now at all, and I think it's getting quite disorganised in the bunch. We see the last shot there. The group was quite large and it's not pulled out as we had seen earlier on, where they were in one line. So I would see these 9 riders going on to the finish, and you know, I don't know what the position is, if the 5 riders will ever catch up with the 3, because they seem to be losing time 46 seconds and the bunch down to 110. So but still, if the bunch gets working together and a few teams get on the front, they could pull that back very quickly, because this breakaway and these riders have been out there for almost 150 k's, and when the bunch start riding in the final in the last 15 k's, they would close that gap very quickly. You know, at a minute would be closed down. It's possible.
The signs on the side of the road, by the way, is because this part of the world is saying it's suffering because the agricultural policy means that they're not earning a living, and many of these small farmers out in the countryside are finding life very difficult. They don't seem to have in France the same system we have in Great Britain regarding having a set buy, and the farmers, I think, here are finding it very difficult to make a living. Of course, they get well financed out of Brussels to stay in business, but there are so many small farmers here, and so it's an area which is not really too happy, but it's a very mixed bag of agriculture around this part of the world, but they don't seem to be getting exactly out of it what they would like. And so with our 3 leaders going through here, we've now got, I think, some more statistics coming up from Mike Smith, who's sitting in the depths and heart of Paris, not the countryside like us. Mike.
Aren't you the lucky ones? Well, this is what you referred to earlier, David. We're within 20 kilometres of Montluçon, the stage finish here today, and it's only the 5th time we've ever been to this particular town before for the Tour de France. There's the previous 4 visits, resulting in stage wins for Wachmans in 53, Roger Hassenford, who we were talking about earlier, in 1956, Henk Nijdam in 1966, and the most recent occasion in 1992, when it was the Italian Jean-Claude Collotti who was first over the line in Montluçon.
Well, Mike has all this information stashed inside his head, you know. He used to play hooky off school, I think, and go and read cycling every week and stick it in his head. No, I joke, Mike, but it's nice to have these statistics coming out, a man beaming away in our background. Do they get off a computer in Paris there, or do they, like me, have a stack of books which they keep leafing through? You know how these chaps work on these stats?
Actually, there's a guy beavering away there who reads the Histoire du Tour de France, which is a nice green book, and I think you've got a copy of it as well.
Yeah, we all get one, yes.
He takes it, and I think he uses it as bedtime reading, because the next day when he comes in, he says, did you know this? And he gives you some statistic that he's gleaned from the pages of this book. And I say, well, I never. He's a mine of information. And I have to give him credit. He's been a tremendous help to me for the last 2.5 weeks in providing me with all these statistics, some of which I know, but a lot of which I need the book to discover. Of course, you can't remember it all, but he's been a mine of information, this fella. He's beavering away every day and producing all these graphs and statistics and looking up facts and figures and so on. And I hope that the viewers out there are appreciating all these little statistics that we bring to them each day. Hopefully it's helping them to understand a little bit more about the Tour de France and its great history, which goes back to 1903. Oh, can I just mention 2003, David? Because that will be the 90th Tour de France. But of course, we lost a few tours, obviously, during the two World Wars, and it will be the centenary of the first Tour de France in 1903, and the organisers are planning to start and finish the tour in 2003 in Paris. Of course, in 1903, as you have referred to many times before, it started in Paris, and what they're planning to do is take the stages to some of those original towns or cities that it visited in 1903. It went down to Lyon, Marseille, Toulouse, Bordeaux, Nantes. That will be a tremendous occasion when the tour reaches its centenary in the year 2003.
Well, the steam seems to go out the chase with only some 10 miles to go, 16 kilometres in foreign language, and we've been showing on our screen statistics throughout the whole of this day and throughout the whole of the Tour de France so far, and we do have these special books provided by the Tour de France, but I suggest don't start writing to Eurosport and say, please, where do I get one from? I think you have to go and ask the Tour de France people. I don't know if they put them on the market, but I'm sure that maybe something like Richard Olchin from Sport and Publicity might be the man to answer that, and see if we can get a few copies and flog them, or anybody else. I think Bicycle Books are in the same business too, but there is one, Mike Smith's been referring to the chap who beavers away producing the statistics for it. There's one book which is even way beyond the one that we have for the Tour de France. It's called The Bible of the Tour de France, and it's written by Jean Nelison, and it finished, I'm just trying to look now, it was about 3 years ago since it was last issued, and so it came to a halt. But this one, actually, the Tour de France one we get as journalists has a lot of information, but this one will actually list every rider that's ridden in the Tour de France, his position, and also whether he finished or not. It's a massive book, and you said to me, how did Barry Hoban do? I can go here and I can tell exactly how many times he rode, how many times he finished, and his places too. It's all in there. A lot more things it's an amazing book, and it takes hours to go through it, and it has complete list. When our Tour de France book here only shows often the top 10, say, finishing in any one particular year. But I could tell you now from this book in 1990 who was last and who was first, Greg LeMond, and go right the way down through every place there, and the overall classification, and to do with the King of the Mountains and the polka dot jersey that he wore and everything else there. And the book has got some lovely old pictures in it as well. I'm probably making you drool back there. It is in French and in Flemish, but it is going to be reprinted sometime next year. And Danny Nellison, who is our commentator for the Flemish speaking, that's the Dutch and the Belgians, John Nellison is his uncle, and he is working with his uncle and very much on his own too, to produce another version of this, updating it to this current year, and that should be out sometime next year. Don't hold me to it and pin me to it. I'm sure it'll be written up in the cycling magazines, or again, I would say you get in touch with people at Bicycling Books or the Bromley people or Sport and Publicity. I'm sure it'll be advertised and talked about in the press, and when that comes out, please don't write to me at Eurosport, because I can't cope with all the letters now and the emails. It's not that I'm being rude, I don't have the time to go through all these things. Well, why don't you just sort of quickly write something and bang it back to me? But I know when I get back on Monday, there's going to be a mountain of paperwork. I'm not doing any more than please excusing from giving this information, but if a lot of people do say, well, where can we get the information? It will be published again next year sometime. It's called The Bible of the Tour de France by Jean Nelison. I expect next time it'll have Jean and Danny Nellison's name on the cover.
and quite a change in the up front at the moment. We had the 3 leaders and we had the 6 chasers, but that group started to fall to pieces, and we see Salomon from AG2R who attacked it, and he blew that 6-man group apart, and they have all been pulled in by the main bunch, and Salomon was the last one to be pulled in. So we've got the 3 leaders, which the gap is about a minute to a minute and 15, and I think we will see a change of things in the bunch, because with Vineycroft being pulled in, I think the Telecom riders will start to ride on the front. And of course we also have Mignan from Francaise de Joux. They weren't riding because he was up the road, and of course they've got their sprinter Casper there all the time, so they're going to ride. And of course the Bonjour guys who are riding a lot today, they still have got Nazon, so I think we will see a lot of the sprinter teams starting to work together in the last coming in inside the last 15 kilometres, so it's very possible that these 3 will be reeled in the final.
I get the impression, the good thing about these 3 though, Sean, is they're all working together. And they're doing it quite nicely. They seem to be doing the right turns. What do you think?
Yes, they are working pretty well. Lely is the one who was trying to miss Turtles on the front, but when the Baguette attack from Lotto, he was onto Peel right away when he went after Baguette. So he's not tired. I think he's trying to bluff a bit and trying to save as much energy as possible for this final run in, and of course the sprint being uphill, he knows that from the team director, and he's trying to spare everything. And now, as I said, we see the Telecom riders are pulling on the front, and we see some of the Festinas and Bonjour, of course, for Nazon. So I think these guys it will be very difficult for them to stay out in front.
1 minute 5 seconds coming over headphones as the chase now really is hotting up then. Jakob Pill here riding for the CSC team. His team, Director Sportif, Bjorn Ries, already having that great run of success with the polka dot jersey being on the shoulders of Laurent Jalabert. And so he, now having moved into team management, Bjorn Ries must be very pleased with his protege here, Jakob Pill. Mainly a trackman, by the way, and I haven't got to dig back in my papers here to pick out his track performance, but he's been round on the track for quite a lot now. Speaks quite jolly good English, and he is probably, if it came down to a sprint, the better of these 3, but as Sean said, it might well be they get pulled back together. Baguette, this is riding hard now. That's Baguette, B-A-G-U-E-T, not the sort of baguette that Russell Williams is prepared to eat out of house and home. This is Baguette, this is Massimiliano Lello, they're also with Jakob Pill. Interesting, he got the fingers there on the brakes. Why would he be so close to that then?
I didn't see what.
Oh, you didn't. I think it was Lely was going along with his fingers holding one close to the brakes with 3 men. I mean, you're not going to run into the bloke in front of you by any chance. I just saw that he's got his. Oh, we'll forget. We had to duck them, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, because the television cameras come over our shoulders to shoot Laurent Fignon alongside us.
No, actually, I was taking notes there of the sprinters, so I wasn't watching the screen just there for that.
I was ducking for the television camera too. Oh, what it is to be alongside these famous men. Right.
Yes, but I was just looking down, and Ben Steins, of course, is still in there, the world champion, and Van Heijswijk from Domo. So there's if you go down to the list of riders, there's quite a lot of teams with still with sprinters in there. So I would see a lot of those teams trying to prepare the sprint. Of course, Domo, we haven't seen him doing anything in this race really, and they have been one of the teams who have been very, very, very much out of the picture, and I think we will see the Mape riders. I think they will definitely try and attack because they don't have a real sprinter here, so they've definitely tried to get away in a break. But I think the work they have done also, they might be paying for that in the final.
Weinstein's the world champion. Almost non-existent in this race so far. Rather chubby too. Do you think he's slimmed down enough to have a go? Because this is slight uphill, 300-metre finish. Funny enough, actually, Sean, this is almost identical, although there's a sharper turn at the bottom. But in terms of slope over 300 metres, he's not dissimilar to the finish in play in the World Championship. But he looks a little more rotund to me now than he was in October.
Yes, well, he certainly did in the mountain stages, and we see a lot of Weinsteins. We see quite a bit of them going out the back door of the bunch in the climbs quite earlier on. But he's hung in there. Some of the other sprinters have already left the tour, but he's hung in there. So depending on how he's feeling, we haven't seen much of him the last number of days. He hasn't been in any of the breaks, so I would be concerned that he's very tired, because if he was feeling well, I think he would have showed himself over the last 3 days in some of those breaks.
I got the impression, although he got the World Championship and watched his performances throughout the year, it was that he was much more of, not a, how can I put it, a true sprinter, a Tom Steels and Eric Zabel, even Stuart O'Grady, or that sort of explosive man coming up the last 200 or 300 metres. He seemed to be able to go a long way out and go very hard and wear people down, which is what he did in the World Championship. He didn't sort of burst in the pack and pump and jump once and twice to get his wheel across. He seemed to be able to go wearing down. He came up through the pack, going what I might call a constant but very fast speed indeed. But whether he's got it now for this stage, we'll only know when we go through the next 10 kilometres. That's going to be just about 12 minutes of racing ahead of us.
Yes, Weinsteins, I think he's not as fast as the real sprinters. As Abel, I think would be a little bit faster than him, but I think the running today, if he's feeling good, he's that type of rider. He's more of a strong rider than a real sprinter, and we see the gap is coming down now, 52 seconds. So I think it will be touch and go with this three-man breakaway, but inside the 10 km mark, they have is a possibility.
Is it up to Telecom in the pink and black here, infiltrated by the Domo rider in the light grey you can see there, and the Bonjour in the blue with the red Bonjour on their shoulders? Is it up to the Telecom to do the chasing rather than, say, Credit Agricole in the green and white? Because they're after the green jersey, so presumably it's their job to challenge the Credit Agricole boys. Well, would the Credit Agricole boys be also trying to wear down the Telecoms? Is it a free ride for Stuart?
Yes, I think it's a free ride here. The Credit Agricole team and O'Grady, I think they just have to follow Zabel here and try and position O'Grady best, take him into the sprint without having to make too much effort, and put him on the wheel of his Abel, and then let him do his own thing. And that's what he seems to like doing. He doesn't have a team pulling it out, pulling the sprint out from him. He seems to follow another sprinter, and definitely we will see him in the wheel of his Abel in the last.
Jimmy Cuthbert in, just heard there's been a puncture by Voigt on his back wheel, so one of the strongmen from Stuart O'Grady's team is now punctured. He will have to get a replacement wheel quickly. He could lose at least 15 seconds in that. What chance could he have got to get back and help Stewie, his great mate? I know he's won a stage yesterday. He must be tired. Do you think that's curtains for Voigt?
Well, yes, he's a big loss to O'Grady, because in this sort of running, Voigt would be very valuable to O'Grady to take him up near the front and keep him there and keep him out of the wind, or take him up a few places in the group when it's going very fast. But it's going to be very difficult for Voigt to get back now in this final running.
How much does a big bloke like Voigt be advantage to Stuart O'Grady, apart from the shelter you get behind a big bloke? Can he lean on people? I mean, you were leading out Freddie Mertens a few years ago, and you had to take him through. What is the skill in this position of taking a man through?
Well, I don't think Voigt would be a great skillful rider taking him through, but he doesn't need to lean on guys. Voigt can ride out in the wind, and he can, move up places because he's so strong. We see him yesterday, like he was so strong in that group, and now we see him coming back again. He's coming back to the car, so he's going to make it back into the bunch. But of course, to the rear of the bunch, to the front, there's a long ways to go, and in this running over the last number of kilometres, it's difficult to move up in this short number of kilometres.
When he does get there, because there's certain sympathy for a man coming through, and he gets around by jumping behind the team cars there. 35 seconds, and oh yes, you spotted something, Sean. Go on.
Yes, well, 3-6 position we see is Abel, and we see O'Grady directly in his wheel, so he's in position already. O'Grady is, and that's what he's got to do. And I think this sprint could suit O'Grady. It should suit O'Grady because it's quite a hard uphill sprint, and I think O'Grady can match Abel better on those in this sort of sprint than in a flat run-in.
Well, these three riders are still hanging on. We're just coming inside, 6 kilometres to go, and they really are. Bagwit on the front at the moment, driving hard. They've been out there for maybe about 15 kilometres since the whole of that leading 16 split up, and they don't seem like they've lost any rhythm at all. And behind him there is Pill from the CSC team, the Danish champion, and then just behind Lely is now there for the company squad. And these three, in fact, he's missing turns again, Lely, but he's not bad on a climb. Sean, is he just playing, oh, I'm suffering, or is he just saving himself, and will they sort of have to ride him into barriers or something? Because I don't like blokes who miss a turn, but there's nothing you can do about it, is there?
No, there's not much you can do, and with the group being so close, there's little time to start playing about with Lely, so he's definitely playing a good tactic here.
Seconds the gap between the three remnants of the 16-man breakaway group that came out 5 kilometres from Brive-la-Gaillarde. They broke away and they built up a lead of 16 men. It took them a long time, nearly 50 kilometres to go from just a handful of seconds to 2.5 minutes. The maximum is just over 4.5 minutes, and suddenly now the pack are breathing down the neck. They caught 13 of the breakaways, and the charge now is to put Zabel in the pink jersey ahead of the man in the green jersey. Stuart O'Grady leads on the points, and amazing there. What a shot that was, Sean. Just interpreted what's going on now.
Yes, well, we see the shot of the main peloton there, and we see Ulrich up the front. He's pulling it there for Zabel. So, and we see it yesterday also. He was very active up in the front. So, you know, they're definitely working hard for Zabel here, and all the telecom team are, putting their step on the line for Zabel.
And Ulrich too to be there. That just shows you that he's taking the courage to go out there. Is that, I won't say stupid to do, but here you are, he's in second place, time trial tomorrow, and he's grafting on the front. Is that what the thing you'd normally expect from a man in his position?
Well, it's a surprise, and he said that he was after the last stage in the Pyrenees, he said he was going to concentrate on working for Zabel whenever the occasion arose, and he's definitely doing that. We see him yesterday, now again today he's pulling in the front. But with the time trial tomorrow, it's surprising that he's up around the front there, but he's also out of danger doing that.
That's Tyrol, that's their coming in, and you can see 1 kilometre to go. They go round here, and it's a bit tricky to begin with, and finally, particularly as they work their way round this left-hander, then it's not too bad until we start to get up towards that 1 kilometre to go. These are twisting and turning, fairly wide roads, thank goodness, but once you get here, this is the point now when they go up towards that finish on the Avenue Lyon-Blum, and that's the last 300 kilometres as they swing around that bit of a left-hander. It's uphill, and it drags and it drags and it drags, and it's sure going to hurt the legs. They pulled the Mavic car through there, the yellow one, the neutral service, and these three riders must looking back, they're getting worried now, so it may be all over as far as they are concerned. It's down to 30 seconds now. We'll get the kilometres coming in as they will go through here. In fact, they seem to be losing momentum, Sean. As they decide it's all over and done with, and looking back, isn't it the best thing to stick your head down and keep going until you drop?
Yes, it certainly is, but I don't think they're losing momentum, because the time is still hanging around 28-30 seconds, and we see in the bunch now, like when riders start to attack, Guidon, who attacks from Française de Joux, it shows that the pace is slowing a bit in the bunch, because when riders can do that. So I think the three ladies are still pulling along at quite a good pace when you look at 28-30 seconds still the gap.
And well, La Française de Joux trying to get something out of this one too, but why would they do that? That must mean Casper must have been shot off. Why send one man down the road? Shouldn't he be looking after Casper?
Yes, you would reckon that they would be pulling it for Casper, and it's a surprise that you see some of his teammates attacking. That is a surprise.
So they're still rolling through here, but they're taking a passenger. These only 2 riders working here. Bramati seems to have gone off now from the group as well. We've got lots of riders jumping off the front. And Gaydon's gone too. Gaydon, the winner of the Paris-Roubaix a few years ago, better at home in the mud and the rough and tumble of the Paris-Roubaix, now trying his hand at getting away, despite the fact that Jimmy Casper is a selected sprinter from the La Française de Joux. It says to me that Casper is going through a bad patch at the back if he hasn't already been shot off the back. He's a chunky little chap, ex-BMX rider, thighs like tree trunks, maybe better off on a flat sprint. Hasn't exactly done what he promised to do 2 years when he first rode his Tour de France. He's just missing out a little bit now, Casper, but nevertheless he's got the punch, but he might not have it on this occasion. 2 kilometres to go for Gaydon, 3 men still in front.
I think they can just about make it, the three leaders, because Gaydon on his own and the bunch is not pulling him in quickly. So, and 26 seconds, inside the last 2 kilometres is, I think we will see the sprint between those 3 riders. What they must not do is in the final running, which is quite a long straight uphill, start looking at each other, and nobody wants to start pulling the sprint out, and they could get swallowed up by the fast coming pack.
What about the man who's been missing?
Well, yes, he's definitely playing. He's playing cute, and he's missing Tullins at the front, and he is quite a good finisher in a small group like this. So I think he would be the danger man. Now he goes in the attack, so he slows in the. His Baguette who start to pull it off the front, and he immediately comes around. Lely comes around and closes the gap. So he's certainly not very, very tired. He's just, I think, playing tactic.
And he's following all the wheels, isn't he? He's now gone to front by accident or design. What do you think?
Well, now we see what I just said about some time ago. They start looking at each other. Nobody wants to lead out the sprint, and this is the dangerous point with the bunch coming in very, very quickly behind. But I think the advantage they have got is just enough for them to get to the finish. But Lely is definitely. He definitely looks to be the strong one now, and some kilometres ago he was missing Tullins, and I think he was just playing a good tactic, pretending he was suffering from fatigue, but I think it was all a tactic.
Well, Lely now is starting to go. He's been hanging about there, and he's using that recovery time sitting in the wheels to try and win this stage into Montluçon. But Bagot starts to go around outside. Bagot's gone past him. And here comes the main pack, but they may be on again for 4th and 5th and 6th place. Cameron foreshortening here, and Bagot going for Lotto yet again. He's got it! What a good relief! Bagot taking it from Pill. Lely, who tried so hard, is back. What's the sprint coming up here then? It's Ulrich leading out. Ulrich by the right hand side. Sperata starts to go, and Zabel goes to the centre. O'Grady can't get past. O'Grady's goal just behind by 1 position was O'Grady. What a finish that was for the contestants for the green jersey. They were ducking and diving and weaving, and in fact I think it might have been that Ulrich finished in front of him. I don't know. We'll see a slow motion replay. Sean Kelly will take it through. I'll get my breath back, but it looks as if O'Grady's lost no more than maybe a couple of points on that sprint, as here goes the first riders for 1, 2 and 3.
Yes, well, Lely looked like he was a strong one, but in the end it was Baguette who had the most power left, and when he took the front, there was nobody able to come up his wheel. Pill was in a good position, but he just wasn't able to move from the wheel of Baguette, and Lely we thought he was going to be stronger in the sprint, but he was toiling in the end.
And the big question is, who finished in the pack ahead of each other? Certainly I think Zabel just beat O'Grady, but I've got a suspicion 2 riders, we'll wait for that one to come back, 2 riders might have been in front of them, therefore there could only be 20 and 19 points for them in the positions they were taking. I reckon probably, did you, looking back at it, Sean, did you see a couple of riders in front of me? Look,
yes,
like
well, Sforda and Serpellini from Lamprey, they were definitely up there, and Weinstein was up there with the World Championship jersey. So, but I think Zabel and O'Grady, he did a very good sprint.
Well, as we look at an aerial view of Montluçon, you've got to agree that was a very powerful and confident-looking performance by Serge Baguette there, who thus got his first Tour de France stage win and his 10th professional win overall. Afterwards, he said very briefly that the race was a difficult one, it was very hot, and we went very quickly in that break, but that's the Tour de France. Well, we always seem to be riding very, very quickly these days. Well, he did it quickest when it mattered most, on the finishing line for that second Lotto victory in 3 days following Rick Verbrugge. His team manager, Jos Brakeveld, was thrilled to bits. He said, I'm very happy because Baguet has a very special story. He worked for 3 years as a roofer out of cycling, and I helped him to come back last year with a minimum salary at the start because he'd been working for 3 years from 6 in the morning to 8 in the evening doing roofing. He came back last year, did the Tour just to improve his condition, really. I thought that if he rides the Tour, he'll progress. This year he's had a good season. It's really incredible. He was a big hope in cycling initially, but then at 26 years old he stopped because he got a bit bored with it. He got that job, but now we've got him back. He's working hard now, and he's making a lot of sacrifices for his cycling. He's enjoying it once again, and it really is a very, very happy day for me and for him that he has won his first stage of the Tour de France. Jos Brakeveld, the Lotto team manager, telling us about his protégé's win. Well, protégé's 31 years of age now, and there's the result of the stage. Peel, Lely, Schwarada, Nazon, Zabel and O'Grady, that was important. Weinsteins and Petacchi. And Petacchi, incidentally, who thumped Weinsteins just after the finish, was subsequently docked 2 minutes for aggressive riding. Anyway, all the aggression of the nicest kind has come from this man because he's beating the rest of them. No change in the overall classification. Armstrong still with that 5 minutes plus lead on Ulrich, and the big day, of course, the time trial coming up. Will Kovalev hang on to the time trial? It's 30.